Hey guys, today's video is going to focus on annotating with a specific focus on PQCSV as an annotating strategy. Before we get into the mini lesson, I do want to discuss one announcement with you guys, which are your past due assignments. At this point, there are 5 assignments that you should have turned in either yesterday at 11:59 or on Friday at 11:59, and those assignments are the student intro, the AP Lang expectation responses, the pop quiz, the no red ink diagnostic, and the AP Lang entry survey. All of these assignments, you can find them in our Google Classroom under classwork. Again, they will be graded and they will be entered into Jump Rope. And one key thing that I do want you guys to keep in mind is that for each one of these, your grade is not going to go in based off of whether or not you completed it correctly or not, whether you answered the questions as you should have or not. They're going to be based off of how hard you actually tried on the assignment. If we see that it seems like you actually did try your best on the assignment, you're almost guaranteed a 3 or a 4. However, if we do see that it seems like you just slapped words on the page and you didn't actually put much thought into it, then you are more likely to get a 1 or a 2. So again, please answer all of these assignments as honestly as possible. It's to help us get to know you guys better and to help us identify what it is that we need to focus on in order to push you guys forward this school year. So reading and annotating, when you guys open up today's assignment, you will notice that it has 4 parts. And part 1 asks you 4 questions about reading and annotating, which is, what does it mean to read something? So when someone asks you to read, what are they really asking you to do? What does it mean to annotate? If your teacher asks you to annotate a text, what are they really asking you to do? What should reading and annotating look like and sound like? And last but not least, what is reading and annotating not? If you would like, you can pause this video right here so you can answer those questions in the notes section. Otherwise, I will continue now with a couple of answers or potential answers to these questions. So first and foremost, it's important to understand that reading isn't necessarily you being able to look at the words and pronounce them correctly. Reading is more so being able to comprehend what is written. So if you understand what the words on the page are trying to tell you as a whole, then generally what you are doing is reading. Now, the next question is, what does it mean to annotate? Annotating can look very, very differently depending on who you are and what is the purpose for your annotations. So some things that you might do when you annotate is highlight and underline important details such as dates, time, places, names, and key events that occur. You might also summarize and paraphrase the paragraphs, right? That can also help you make sure that you have an understanding of what is going on in the text. And also, if you know you're going to have to come back, writing a paraphrase or a summary will allow you to remember very quickly what it is that that paragraph may have said, or what the story may have said in general. You might also look for keywords and use context clues. Context clues is using the words surrounding the word that you are not familiar with to help you understand or identify what that definition might be. Aside from looking for keywords and using context clues to understand or get the definition of those words, you can also circle words that you don't know and then come back to them later so that you can identify what that definition is. The last annotation strategy you might encounter or you might use is PQCSV, which stands for predicting, questioning, clarifying, summarizing, and visualizing. We will go over PQCSV within the next couple of minutes. So now that we know what reading is and what annotating is, what should reading and annotating look like and sound like? So for the most part, it's going to be mostly silent, right? You might see writing utensils moving, so maybe a highlighter, a pen, or a pencil moving on a piece of paper. Or if you're working digitally, you might see fingers gliding across the keyboard. It might look like someone checking for comprehension. So maybe you're stopping every now and then to write a summary about what you just read. Maybe you're taking a sentence and you're paraphrasing. In other words, you're putting it into your own words to make sure that you have an understanding of what's going on as well. You might be asking questions, right, to make sure that you understand what's going on and the process of what's going on in the story. And it might also look like you having a conversation with your paper. And the reason why we say it kind of looks like a conversation with your paper is because you should be writing notes in the margin. You should be asking questions. You should be writing down things that come to mind, right? So annotating is definitely an interactive process. It's not something where you just sit there and you read and that's it. You need to make sure that you're also using your hands and using your brain and interacting with the text to make sure that you are reading. In other words, you are understanding and comprehending what is written in front of you. What is reading and annotating not? It is not highlighting and underlining everything on the page. We see that so often. Please do not do that. You're wasting ink. You're making your fingers hurt. Don't do it. It's not helping you. When you go back and take a look at that piece of paper, you're not going to learn anything new. Nothing is going to jump out at the page at you because literally everything is highlighted in yellow or whatever color. So please, if we see just highlights everywhere, absolutely everywhere with no notes or anything else, that's not considered annotating. So now with PQCSV, right, the first P stands for predicting. And when you're predicting, you are making a guess or making an assumption as to what's going to happen in the text. And if you take a look at this poster is also linked as well in your assignment. It gives you an idea of what are some other words that also mean to predict. And it also gives you some examples of some questions that you can ask yourself in order to make predictions when you're reading the text. After predicting comes questioning, right? And it's always important to have a skeptical mind when reading, when interacting with individuals, right? You want to make sure that you're asking questions. And when you ask questions, it can help you make sure that you know and have an understanding as to what is going on in the story or the text that you are reading. Clarifying is when you are explaining or rereading, you're monitoring yourself for understanding, right? Clarifying goes really well with paraphrasing because paraphrasing is when you take a word, a sentence, or a phrase and you turn it into your own words. When you are taking something and you're putting it in your own words, you are clarifying what that statement is saying for yourself. Next, we have summarize. Summarizing is my favorite thing because when you have a really, really long text, you can summarize each one of the paragraphs in 1 to 3 sentences and still have a general idea and understanding of what is going on. So summarizing is something that is phenomenal, right? It's something that you can do at the very end of the reading of your text. It's something that you can do after each one of your paragraphs. You're pretty much open to how you can use summary. Last but not least, this is one that isn't widely used, but it is one of my favorites, especially for those of you guys who like to be creative and who are very artsy. It's visualize. When you are visualizing, what you're essentially doing is you're drawing a picture of what you are picturing in your head as you're reading the text, right? What do you see? What are you imagining? This goes hand in hand with imagery that some of you guys may or may not be aware of. Imagery is a strategy that is used in reading to help you draw a mental picture in your head. So usually if there is imagery going on in the story, it's very easy to be able to visualize, and maybe it'll be easy for you to draw, maybe it won't be. I personally am not that much of an artist, even though I love art. So I would just draw stick figures, but it's totally up to you what visualizing looks like for you as long as it makes sense. Because the most important thing that you should know with annotations is that annotations are for you. Yes, your teachers are going to be grading them and looking at them, but the most important thing is to make sure that your annotations make sense to you, because those are notes that you can use to help you write an essay in the future, to help you answer multiple choice questions if that's what you have. Whatever the case is, the notes at the end of the day are going to be for you. So now that we have had a chance to take a look at PQCSV, what you're going to do now is move into part 2, which is to read the text provided. You're going to read the text about 3 times because you're going to have 3 separate purposes for annotations. And each time that you read, you're going to annotate for something specific. The next thing that you will do after that is answer multiple choice questions, which I don't have here. I will go over those multiple choice questions in the next video. But after you answer the multiple choice questions, part 4 is the wrap up and review. What you are doing here is reflecting on what you have done for the day. So based off of the 3 readings that you are going to do, you're going to talk about which reading was probably the most difficult. The most difficult reading might be the 3rd read, because I'm asked to go and take a look at multiple choice questions, and I constantly have to go back and forth, flipping back and forth, so that I can annotate the text, right? Maybe that's an example of what you might say for the first questions. 2, why is it important to set up a purpose for reading? Why are you reading? Why are we going to be reading this? What is the point of us reading, right? It's important for you to know so that you know what to focus on. You don't want to read a text the entire time and not know what the purpose of the text is, what's the point of it, to then at the end be told, hey, you have to write an essay. Because now you just read the text and you read it fully, but you weren't paying 100% attention, so you don't really know what to write about. So now you have to go back and read all over again. So it's important to set a purpose for reading so that you know what to look for and you know what to annotate, right? And then the last question is, when should we set a purpose for reading? I'm not going to say much about that. I want to see what you guys think based off of the way that I answered number 2, and also based off the way that I answered number 1, and also, and most importantly, based off of the way that you guys go about the assignment. Should we set a purpose for reading? Is there a specific time that we should set a purpose for reading? Should we always have a purpose for reading? What should that look like? Okay. As always, if you guys do have any questions, please feel free to email me, Ms. Rosario. You can email Ms. Sterner. You can also email Mr. Schechter. We are always available for you guys to answer any questions and support you guys in any ways that we can.